Hey everyone, thanks for joining us. This is the Action Elite Presents inaugural episode with a very special guest, Mr. Sheldon Lettich. Sheldon's a former U.S. Marine, a photographer, a writer, and a director. You know his work from Bloodsport, Double Impact, Lionheart, Only the Strong, Rambo 3, and so many more. And I'm also joined by Mr. Owen Friel from the Action Elite. He's the man who makes it happen. So gentlemen, say hello.
Hi, how are you doing? Thanks for joining us tonight, everybody.
All right, and today we've got Sheldon. I mean, Sheldon's got a great career in action and film, but today we're actually going to focus on Bloodsport specifically. It's on Netflix right now, so you can watch this and go back and watch it later. And then basically, go ahead, Sheldon.
Well, we're going to basically talk about how Bloodsport came to be. What was the genesis of this project? And then I'm going to go a little bit into the legacy that it created. This is one of the most popular martial arts movies in the world. Probably it shares a spot alongside Enter the Dragon. You talk about martial arts movies, people are going to talk about either Bloodsport or Enter the Dragon or both of them. So we're going to be hitting Bloodsport today. I'm going to tell you where the idea came from, how it got developed, how it got turned into a movie, and then what happened after it got turned into a movie and was unleashed upon the world.
All right, here we go. We've got the presentation up here. And before we begin with this, Owen, when's the first time do you remember seeing Bloodsport?
It was around about 1989, I think. I was over at my cousin's house in Ireland, and he had all the VHS tapes. And he's like, "Have you ever heard of this guy called Jean-Claude Van Damme?" And I was like, "No, who's that?" And we watched Kickboxer, we watched Bloodsport, and I remember Double Impact was coming out as well one of the next times I came over, and I watched that. So I must give a big thank you to my cousin Patrick, who introduced me to the world of Van Damme. So we just watched all those movies pretty much on repeat on VHS, and never stopped watching ever since, really.
So you were a bit late to the party, basically. Bloodsport had already been out for a few years, and then we did Lionheart right afterwards, and then we did Double Impact after that. So so you weren't there when Bloodsport first exploded upon the world. And
I was 8 years old, I think, when it first came out. So
a lot of 8-year-olds saw it and loved it.
Oh yeah.
I saw it, I think I saw it on TBS. So yeah, same thing. I didn't see it in a theater or on VHS. It was just one of those movies that played a lot on cable. And I just remember, sitting with the family watching this film and just being amazed by it. So this is a lot of fun. But yeah, so Sheldon, if you want to take us away here, like I said, we're just going to kind of pepper you with questions while you're going through the deck here if you want to start.
Let's go into the deck, okay? Because that'll tell the whole story from the beginning, okay? So around 1980, through my agent, I was introduced to this gentleman named Frank Dux. And Frank had a martial arts dojo in the San Fernando Valley called Dux Ninjitsu. He taught the secret art of Dux Ninjitsu, said he'd been trained in ninjitsu in Japan, had all these wild stories about being one of the most highly decorated Marines in Vietnam, about being a CIA agent, about being a ninja. And when he was a teenager, he had a shidoshi named Senzo Tanaka, who brought him to Japan and taught him the secret art of ninjitsu there. So anyways, I met this guy. And this is 1980. There was no internet back then. There was no way to check these stories out. And basically, I was taking Frank at his word on most of this. And this is his flyer. And the flyer talked about all this stuff, about being a shidoshi and trained in Koga Yamabushi Ninja. Anyways, so we got to talking. Here's some more details right here. He was the first and only Occidental to learn the ancient guarded secrets of Koga Yamabushi system of ninjitsu and achieve master status, Shidoshi. Okay, so here's a little bit more about Frank. Frank was a teller of tall tales, mostly about himself. He had what psychiatrists have called a what's that?
Is it Walter Mitty, right?
Walter Mitty, yeah. He had this Walter Mitty syndrome, where he would make up these fantastic stories, these fantastic heroic stories, and put himself in these stories as the star of the stories. So anyways, he was telling people, and he actually was in the Marines. He was in the Marine Corps Reserves for no more than 6 months, but said that he'd been on secret missions. You can see here. Oh, look, I can actually use my cursor to see all this, what we call fruit salad on his chest. He did not earn any of these medals. He was not awarded gold jump wings, none of that stuff. This is in a book called Stolen Valor, by the way, about military phonies. And Frank had claimed that he won this secret martial arts contest called the Kumite, which I believe was held every 5 years. And here's Frank down here. Put my cursor.
Yeah, so Sheldon, with this, I mean, I think, he was, he was a martial artist, maybe not a ninja, but then kind of how long were you guys kind of talking and stuff like that when you realized this was going to be a good story, and like what kind of like the genesis to Bloodsport as a script?
Well, I'm sort of coming to that actually, because what really sealed it for me was an article that came out in Black Belt magazine. And we're going to get to that shortly. But basically, here's Frank with his posing with a trophy that he claimed that he was awarded after winning the Kumite. Turned out that this was a trophy that he had made for himself at a local trophy shop. But it all sounded good to me. Like I said, there was no internet at the time. I couldn't look this stuff up. There's no place to research it at all. And I was not a martial artist myself, so I didn't know much about the martial arts world. Now let's see what I got here. Oh, here we go. Here's the article in Black Belt magazine, which was called Kumite, a Learning Experience. And it was written by the editor of Black Belt magazine, John Stewart. There's a picture of Frank W. Dukes, it says, on the trophy, and said that he won the Kumite. This pretty much started cinching it for me. This made me think, well, as fantastical as this story sounds, maybe there's some veracity to it, because Black Belt magazine, they certainly know more about martial arts than I do, and they're saying this. They didn't say absolutely it's true, but they were saying there's a good chance it might be true. So this article was pretty much the genesis of what became Bloodsport. This article, and Frank talking to me about this Kumite also. He would talk about it. He would tell me about all these fighters and his experiences, and he was the first Westerner to win the Kumite. And one day let's see what's next here. Oh yeah, okay. So one day we're driving in my car, and Frank is telling these stories to me. And for the first time, I heard the word Bloodsport. He told me, well, it was full contact, so the fights were very bloody, blood all over the map. And because of that, we nicknamed it Bloodsport rather than Kumite. We just called it Bloodsport. And that, it was really like I heard a choir of angels singing, Bloodsport. Wow, is that a cool title for a movie? And not only that, those stories that he was telling me about this Kumite and all of his experiences and being in the military and having this Shidoshi Tanaka teaching him all these martial arts skills when he was a teenager, all of this sort of coalesced. And I said, the next thing I said was, Frank, not only is that a cool title, this is a great idea for a movie. Now, at the time, I think I hadn't really had any movies made. I was writing a lot of screenplays, and I think I might have at this point I might have written Ruskies already. Ruskies was a movie. It was actually the first movie that Joaquin Phoenix starred in. He was a teenager at the time and went by the name Leaf Phoenix. So I think that maybe had gone into production. In fact, I'm pretty sure it had. And I was also working for Sylvester Stallone. So Stallone had read one of my Vietnam screenplays called Firebase. And he ended up hiring me. His company hired me to co-write Rambo 3 with him. So this was before Rambo 3 came out, but at least I was able to say with complete honesty, yeah, I'm writing, I'm actually working on Rambo 3 with Stallone, and Stallone had also hired me to write a French Foreign Legion screenplay. So this is two projects I was writing for Sylvester Stallone, who at the time was the biggest movie star in the world. And this is pretty much in the period following Rambo 2, Rambo First Blood Part 2. And he was a big deal. And I think it was the highest grossing movie of that year. It also got the most negative reviews of any movie that year, but it was the highest grossing movie. So I felt very honored to be working for Sylvester Stallone, but that was sort of a feather in my cap also as far as being a screenwriter. Now we talked about sitting down and writing the script, but we never did. We just never got around to it. But we talked about it a lot. Let's see what's next here. Oh, okay. So I'm going to take a sip of water here because I'm not used to talking a lot during this COVID sequestration.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? You gotta get back used to talking a lot when you're home, working from home.
Right. And writers don't talk a lot anyway. We generally sit in front of our computer and type stuff up. Anyways, I ran into this guy named Mark DiSalle, who I was editing a short film that I had directed. Mark was, quite frankly, he was producing low-budget porno movies at the time. So we were at the same post-production facility. And I had been talking to his editor, and I told his editor, yeah, I'm a screenwriter. I've been hired by Stallone. So the editor introduced me to Mark, and then Mark comes by the editing room and says, hey, I hear you're a writer. I'd like to take you out to lunch and talk about a project that I'd like to have written. So Mark takes me to lunch, and he's telling me about martial arts movies. Basically, movie genres go in cycles, according to Mark, which is true. And he said there hasn't been a martial arts movie for a while, and I'm thinking of bringing martial arts movies back. Another sip of water here. And he pitched me an idea that he wanted me to write, which was called Kickboxer. I listened to the idea for Kickboxer. And in the original Kickboxer idea, now we're kind of sidetracking other movies, but you all want to hear about Kickboxer also, right? So in the original idea, there was no, Kurt Sloan did not have a brother. Tang Po wants to get revenge for being beat by Kurt Sloan. He goes to Kurt Sloan's house, and Kurt Sloan's mother is in the kitchen, like, I swear to you, making cookies or something. And Tang Po comes in, and he sees Kurt, and he throws a kick at Kurt, but misses Kurt, but hits his mother and kills Kurt Sloan's mother. And this was the story. And so I'm listening to this, and I'm thinking, well, Mark, this sounds okay. I like the title and everything, but I got another idea for a martial arts movie, which I want to tell you about. It's called Bloodsport. Well, he heard that title, and instantly, just like everybody, like Bloodsport, wow, that's a cool title. So I tell him what Bloodsport's about. I tell him it's based on a real guy named Frank Dux. I know this guy. Sorry, again.
Making you talk too much.
Yeah, I know. I can introduce you to Frank Dux. And lives here, he lives in the Valley. And so he says, sure, let's set up the meeting. So we set up the meeting. So Mark, like Frank, listened to his stories, saw the article in Black Belt magazine. And so he's also thinking what I was thinking, this is a cool idea for a movie. And he decided he's going to hire me to write the screenplay for Bloodsport. Okay, forget about Kickboxer for now. Bloodsport's a much better idea, much better title. I'm going to hire you to write Bloodsport. And there on the screen, you can see the writing contract. And he also worked out a deal with Frank to get the rights to Frank's life story, to Frank Dux' life story, Not his entire life from start to finish, but the portion of his story that deals with the Kumite and being in the military and all of this. So in the writing contract, it even says that let's see, entitled Bloodsport, consisting of a first draft screenplay. And they even said that it's based upon the true life story of Frank Dux, which we hold the rights to. And they did. Mark had a signed deal with Frank, paid Frank a little money, paid me very little money. And so I went ahead and wrote this screenplay. And then let's move on to the next one. Oh, okay, so then Mark didn't have the money to actually make the movie, but he went to a financier named Lou Horowitz, who basically found money to make movies. And Lou knew Menachem Golan and Yoram Globus at Cannon Films, so Lou took it to Cannon, and at Cannon they liked this idea. I was not at the meeting with them. This was basically Mark and Lou meeting with the honchos at Cannon. And Cannon had been doing well with low-budget martial arts movies. They made Enter the Ninja. They made, I think, then they made American Ninja, I believe, right? American Samurai. They did a bunch of low-budget martial arts movies and were doing good with them. Michael Dudikoff was in a number of these, Sho Kosugi. So
yeah, you had Chuck Norris in house as well, so they definitely like the martial arts action world.
Right. Yeah, they were making Chuck Norris movies as well. This got set up at Cannon. And then the next step was finding somebody to play Frank Dux in the movie version of Bloodsport. Then you can see on the poster here, they used a still of Jean-Claude from No Retreat, No Surrender, because the movie they didn't even have a director at the time. You can this is an ad that they ran in the Hollywood Reporter and Variety. There's no director listed, but they've got Van Damme. Once they had Van Damme, then they had their star. That's a whole story.
Sheldon, I guess how long was the script with Cannon before you learned that Jean-Claude Van Damme was attached to star and they were going to go for it? Do you remember?
Well, actually, the movie was set up before they had Jean-Claude Van Damme. The movie was set up and there was no star. They just liked the title. They liked the script. They wanted to make this movie. We were actually searching for a star. We were discussing various names. Chuck Norris's name was mentioned, but we realized, well, he's really too old to play this role because this is supposed to be a younger guy. And I believe Michael Dudikoff's name was floated. Sasha Mitchell's name was floated. There were a few other names that were floated. Nobody was really quite right for it. And then Jean-Claude happened to see Menachem on La Cienega Boulevard. This is a story that he's told many, many times. He and Michelle Casey are driving down La Cienega. He sees Menachem coming out of a restaurant. Michelle, quick, do a U-turn. There's Menachem Golan. They pull up and Jean-Claude goes up to Menachem, and he had met Menachem briefly at the Cannes Film Festival. Menachem totally forgot who he was. And he says, hey, you remember me, Van Damme? And then he throws a kick at Menachem's face, misses his nose by an inch or so. And Menachem just happened to be looking for a star for Bloodsport. Wasn't looking for a big star, didn't want to pay a lot of money for anything, didn't pay a lot for the screenplay, wasn't going to pay an actor a lot of money. But he tells Jean-Claude, come by my office tomorrow morning. He might have been with his assistant, Karen, because I think Jean-Claude told me that he said, Karen, tomorrow we give him Bloodsport. So Jean-Claude goes to Cannon Films the next day, and Menachem hands him the script and says, would you like to be in this movie, Bloodsport? I wasn't there. I'm just paraphrasing here, but basically, then he liked Jean-Claude, liked the idea of having him in Bloodsport, and he told Mark DiSalle, oh, and I believe No Retreat, No Surrender was in theaters at the time, right at the same time. So it was really serendipity. From the stars were just aligned for Jean-Claude to be in this movie. So he tells Mark DiSalle, hey, we found this guy, Jean-Claude Van Damme. Mark calls Frank Dux and I and says, hey, Menachem found a guy who he wants to put into the movie. This guy, Jean-Claude Van Damme. And he's currently in a movie that's in the theaters called No Retreat, No Surrender. Why don't you guys go see it? Tell me what you think. So Frank and I went to a theater in the Valley, saw the movie, and from the moment Jean-Claude appears on the screen, we were just blown away. We're just looking at one another saying, wow, this guy's fantastic. And then we're seeing the fight scenes, and we're excited, we're jazzed. We call Mark after we get out of the movie theater. We tell him, this guy's terrific, this guy's great, you should hire him. And so that was pretty much, I don't know how much they went on our opinion, but everybody seemed to like Jean-Claude. I think Mark liked him, Menachem, Frank and I liked him. So he ended up being the star of the movie. The next thing we know, Canon puts out all these ads, and they had this Bloodsport ad with Van Damme raising his fists, Bloodsport.
And I don't know if you have this coming up in the future, but basically, kind of, do you remember when, between the time you were hearing these rumors, you saw Jean-Claude in No Retreat, No Surrender? At what point did you actually meet him?
I did not meet Jean-Claude in person until they finished filming Bloodsport.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, it was a low-budget movie. Even big-budget movies don't send writers along to the set, so they did not send me to the set. But the first time I was introduced to Jean-Claude, Frank Dux called me from Hong Kong. They were in the midst of production. Mark was making a lot of changes to the script. Jean-Claude and Frank were not happy with the changes. And they called me. They said they were on the roof of a building. They called me, and Frank introduced me to Jean-Claude on the phone. We talked. There was a pretty long conversation. We must have talked for a half hour. And Jean-Claude and I, we hit it off on the phone, and we both said, hey, look, when you're back in LA, we got to hook up. And we did. When he came back to LA after shooting the movie, the next day, I believe, he and his wife Gladys came over to my apartment. And we hit it off just like gangbusters. His wife and my wife were both pregnant at the time. And they both hit it off really well. So they got to be really good friends. And Jean-Claude and I got to be really good friends. And, that pretty much led to Lionheart just a few months later.
Yeah, very, very prosperous, very awesome collaboration. I mean,
Absolutely.
we all know all the films you've done with Jean-Claude and some of the behind the scenes work you've done with him. So,
right.
And then, so I guess during this time, so you're saying low budget film, they filmed it in Hong Kong. Just kind of, I guess kind of what point did you, it was probably a little bit before he came back to town, but kind of what were you working on in the meantime then? Like this, you got the script, it's in production. Did you go back to working with Stallone, or were you working on anything else?
I was working with Stallone at the time, actually. In fact, Jean-Claude was pretty impressed with that. And I was working on the French Foreign Legion script. I had already did my work on the Rambo script with Stallone. And now I was working on the French Foreign Legion script. And I needed some colorful French expletives for the script because the movie took place in France, French Foreign Legion. So Jean-Claude actually helped me with that. He came by my office, and he was just giving me all these colorful French curse words and expressions. So I was working on French Foreign Legion at the time. That's a movie that did not get made. However, Jean-Claude and I started talking about the French Foreign Legion. And then in the first film we did together, where I directed Lionheart, I made him a French Foreign Legionnaire at the beginning. And then we ended up collaborating on a movie about the Foreign Legion in the 1920s, which was called Legionnaire. That was actually the script that I had pitched to Stallone was going to be called Legionnaire, and I wanted it to take place in the 1920s. Stallone wanted it to take place present day. He wanted it to be contemporary, which didn't work nearly as well. Anyway, so I did work on that, got paid for it, ended up never happening, but I did end up making my French Foreign Legion movie, like 10 years later.
Yeah, you kind of made a French Foreign Legion film and a half, right? Or at least an intro to one. With
Yeah,
Valor.
1.5, right.
Yeah, great. And I think you got some more photos from the actual, I know you said you didn't go to Hong Kong, but yeah, you got some more photos from the production here.
I do. Well, it's my next slide here. So then Bolo Yeung got cast, and Mark was really excited about this. In fact, the first director that he was talking to about directing Bloodsport was what's the guy who directed Enter the Dragon?
Was that Robert Klaus?
Robert Klaus. Mark told Frank and I, hey, guess what? I'm talking to Robert Klaus, the guy who directed Enter the Dragon. We're trying to get him to direct Bloodsport. Well, that didn't work out. But then we got Bolo. And this is all Mark. He got Bolo from Enter the Dragon to play the main villain, Chong Li. So we thought that was pretty cool. That ended up being an amazing choice, having Bolo in that movie. And then, of course, we used Bolo again in Double Impact. So, yeah, this ended up being a twofer for Bolo.
Was he always the main choice to play Chong Li, or were there other actors considered?
There was nobody else ever considered to play Chong Li. Mm. Yeah, once we had Bolo from Enter the Dragon, basically we had a package that Menachem Golan was liking, because Van Damme had never really, he'd never been in any, well, he'd been in No Retreat, No Surrender playing the villain. But Bolo from Enter the Dragon, that was kind of a big deal. So now we had a pretty good package for a martial arts movie. We got the guy from Enter the Dragon, we got this martial arts champion, Jean-Claude Van Damme, and they went ahead and went to Hong Kong to shoot this movie with Newt Arnold. Newt ended up directing the movie. Newt had met Menachem. He was a very famous first assistant director. Actually, he was the first AD on Blade Runner. And Canon was having a problem with one of their films. They had a director that was not able to handle the production. And I think Newt was the first AD on it. And Menachem said, Newt, why don't you direct the movie? Okay. So Newt ended up ghost directing some movie. And Menachem promised him, look, if you ghost direct this movie for me, I'm going to give you a movie to direct. And so that movie ended up being Bloodsport. And Newt did a terrific job on Bloodsport. I don't think he directed another movie afterwards, because it wasn't, I think he died just a few years after Bloodsport was released. So yeah, he never really got to bask in the glory of having directed this amazing martial arts movie.
Yeah, I mean, seminal martial arts film with Enter the Dragon, like you said. I mean, after Bruce Lee, there wasn't really, you had Chuck Norris, and then, Van Damme was a big sensation in the 90s there. So this was really like the next giant step for that genre.
Let's see. Oh, then they ended up casting Forrest Whitaker. Forrest Whitaker was basically just at the very beginning of his career. Nobody had ever heard of Forrest Whitaker before. I think the casting people at Canon kind of liked him, kind of thought he had some potential. And so we ended up having Forrest Whitaker on the movie, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it also adds, after all these years, the movie has lived on for so many reasons, but it's always fun to go back and see that here's Forrest Whitaker in this movie as well as a young actor.
And then the other guy who was chasing after Van Damme, Norman Burton, was no famous actor, but he did play Felix Leiter in one of the James Bond movies. I forgot which one, but yeah, he was quite proud of the fact that he played Felix Leiter. All right, so now production commences. I forgot what month. I think it was later in the year, though. I think it might have been in the fall or the winter, but production commences 1986. Here's a behind-the-scenes photo taken on the set. Jean-Claude, that might be Frank Dux down there that he's talking to, very possibly. Frank was on the set. Frank claims that he trained Jean-Claude, that Jean-Claude wasn't really up for being in the movie yet. I don't quite believe that. He was in pretty amazing shape. But Frank might have taught him a few things. Anyways, Frank was on the set the whole time and was involved with the fight choreography. And I thought he did a pretty nice job with the fight choreography, actually. This is, of course, back in the 80s. Fight choreography is a lot different nowadays. But back then, I thought some of the stuff that they did was pretty innovative. And I was quite impressed with. When I watched the movie again just recently, and the fights are impressive. They're fun. It's a fun movie to watch. People just never get tired of this movie, even though the fights are, compared to what you see in the John Wick movies, for example. They're a bit slow. They're a bit sluggish. However, there's a lot of fun and imagination, and Jean-Claude does some amazing stuff. So it's still fun to watch. This movie is never. People have never stopped watching this film over and over again.
How much detail did you go into whenever you were writing fight scenes initially? Do you just write "they fight," or do you go into like detail of what's going on in the fight?
I went into more detail with a few of the fights, like with the final fight with Chong Li. That was more detailed. Not that they followed all the details, but it was. It probably went on for a good 2 pages or so. It wasn't just he fights Chong Li and wins. It wasn't something simple like that. It was more complex, but it wasn't. It's not like they followed it word for word when they were shooting the movie. Let's see what I got next here. Oh, okay. Here's another photo of the set. I believe this is Newt Arnold here wearing the shorts. And here's a 35mm camera that they shot this with. It's a pretty nice set, and they filmed at Clearwater Bay Studios, Kowloon, Hong Kong.
And then did you go back there for Double Impact, or did you shoot in a different studio there?
We did. Yes, we actually did go there for Double Impact. I'm not exactly sure. We were definitely on some sound stages there. It was the Shaw Brothers sound stages where we shot Double Impact. And Clearwater Bay, this might have been the Shaw Brothers also. It was Run Shaw and his brother. Anyways, here's a famous shot of Jean-Claude doing some, I don't know if you'd call these katas. What would you call that when he's doing the hand stuff? Anyways.
Yeah, I think he's doing the splits. Yeah, meditation. I don't know if there's a kata where you do it from the splits position.
No,
right,
that's just showing off.
Yeah, just showing off skills.
So they shot on location in Hong Kong. They actually shot in the Forbidden City, which was torn down afterwards. And that was I don't want to go into the whole history of the Forbidden City, but when you see them going through those alleys in the movie, they're going through these alleys, these corridors, all these pipes and wires. That is what was called the Forbidden City. Cops didn't go in there. It was all criminals, a lot of people living there rent-free. It was like this huge complex, like something out of Blade Runner. And they actually did film there. And I think it might have been one of the last movies to shoot there. I believe by the time we did Double Impact, the Forbidden City had been, I'm not sure if it had been torn, it was torn down after we did Double Impact. Because when the Chinese took the city over from the British, that's when they decided to clear all that stuff out. But anyways, back to Bloodsport. Here's the crew in Hong Kong. You can see guy with the eye patch, that's Newt Arnold. There's Jean-Claude right there. There's Mark DiSalle. And I guess this is the crew bus taking everybody from the hotel to the set.
Did you ever meet Donald Gibb at one of the premieres or anything?
I think I probably did. I probably met him at the premiere. I know I met Forrest Whitaker for sure at the premiere when they had the premiere on Hollywood Boulevard. Donald Gibb, I bet I met him, but you know, we're talking like 35 years ago now. So
He was so perfectly cast, though. I absolutely loved him. I couldn't picture anybody else playing that character.
right. And it'd be hard to picture anybody else playing Jean-Claude's role either.
Yep.
Jean-Claude was he was just made for this movie.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, even all the people who came after him, you know, or even a Dudikoff at the time, but all the martial arts guys who came after Van Damme, like none of them had the same charisma as he did. They might have been more technical, proficiently martial arts, but you know, Van Damme he looks great on screen.
Dudikoff was not even a martial artist.
Yeah, I remember that.
Dudikoff, he was an actor that they taught some martial arts to, yeah, he never did anything all that spectacular. It was basically Sho Kosugi who was doing the spectacular stuff in those ninja movies. So, here's another lobby card from the movie. This is one of the French lobby cards, by the way. And this is our final fight. Pretty spectacular final fight. Even to this day, it's a pretty damn cool final fight. So yeah. Van Damme versus Bolo Yeung. And so then the movie was completed. Here's what the U.S. theatrical poster looked like. It sat on the shelf for a while. I have told this story many times, but basically, Menachem Golan hated the movie. He thought it was horrible. He called it poison. He called Van Damme poison. He wouldn't release it. He was going to go straight to video with it. And this was back in the days when there was VHS. Things were released to VHS, but you had to have a real stinker to be released straight to video back then. And Menachem disliked the movie so much, he was going to release it straight to video, even though it only cost like $1.2 million or something to make. But he thought it wasn't worth spending the money to promote the movie.
Sheldon, I know, yeah, the movie, you know, sat on the shelf for a while, and there's a famous story about Jean-Claude re-editing some of the fight scenes. I guess, were you involved? You said you hadn't met him yet. So do you recall just what did Menachem not like? I mean, was it like too much story? Were the fights falling flat? Just kind of what was the problem? Do you remember?
Well, first of all, I had met Jean-Claude at this point. At this point, the movie was completed. Jean-Claude was in LA. I had met him. And then we're told, hey, they finished cutting the movie. Mark DiSalle called us and said, hey, you guys want to come take a look at the movie? We're going to have a little screening of it, just a very private screening. But we had, so it was Mark DiSalle, Frank Dukes, myself, Jean-Claude, Michelle Casey, a bunch of us. Crowded into this little theater, and we watched a rough cut of the movie. And every one of us was depressed after we saw it, because we thought we got gold here. This is going to be a really cool movie. And we all disliked what we saw. And it was edited at the time by this old-time editor, Carl Kress. And Carl just wasn't, he just wasn't the right guy to cut this movie. He just kind of put everything together in order, but he didn't know how to cut the fights. He was not adept at cutting fight scenes in movies. There was just a lot that was wrong. It was not structured correctly. I didn't take notes or anything. We just sat there and watched. And all I know is we were all depressed after we came out of the theater. And then Jean-Claude thought the fight scenes were cut completely wrong. So he goes to see Menachem and tells him, hey, Menachem, I need to get into the editing room and fix these fight scenes. I know I can fix these fight scenes. I know I can make them much better. And I'm not sure how he convinced Menachem, but Menachem also put another editor on. This is a guy named Michael J. Duthie. And Michael had cut a lot of big action movies. He's got a pretty huge resume, actually. And he was a guy, he was brought in to be not a script doctor, but like a movie doctor on some of the other Cannon films. I think he recut some of the Chuck Norris movies. I think he's got credits on some Chuck Norris movies for Cannon. Anyways, Michael really knew his business. I think he ended up doing a few movies for Roland Emmerich, actually. So Michael really knew his stuff. And so he came in and just completely restructured the movie. And I know Jean-Claude went into the editing room and he was involved with the fight scene. It's not that Michael didn't know how to cut a fight scene. He did, but Jean-Claude was basically the guy who had been on the set. That's me up there on the screen. And I know it's supposed to be this, and that. So Jean-Claude was a big help. He says that he recut the fights. I don't think he physically recut them, but I think he was there with Michael reworking those fight scenes. So,
do you recall when you would have seen a cut with that soundtrack? I mean, I think a lot has to do with like the energy of that film. I think also rests in the Paul Herzog soundtrack, the Stan Bush songs. Do you recall like I mean, I guess kind of how many cuts did you end up seeing? Do you remember? And then do you recall seeing one with the soundtrack? I
saw that bad cut, the first bad cut, and then after it was recut, they screened the movie for us again. And again, I went with Jean-Claude and Michelle Kesey, Mark DiSalle, and I think Frank Dukes was with us too. We were just totally blown away. It was night and day. We were euphoric after we saw this new cut. And I remember we went to, right nearby, there was a restaurant called Kate Mantellini. We went to Kate Mantellini. We sat around, we were pretty much high-fiving one another, talking. And we were actually taking bets on how much money this movie was going to make. And we had these outlandish bets. We were, I think Michelle Kesey was saying, it's going to make $100 million. No, Michelle, come on, you're crazy. By now, with home video and everything, by now, who knows? It might have made something like that. But we knew it was going to do well. Leon and I had written what we were hoping would be a sequel to Lone Wolf McQuade, which Leon had starred in with Chuck Norris. And I had introduced him to Jean-Claude, and they hit it off. And so Leon was saying, so we weren't going to do it we knew Chuck Norris didn't want to do it. So we were talking about putting Jean-Claude in to that role. So Jean-Claude and Leon Isaac Kennedy would co-star in this movie. And it was called Strikers Force, kind of a low-budget action movie. And Menachem liked the script. He was going to let me direct the movie. I hadn't directed a movie up to then. But the one thing he didn't want was Van Damme to be in the movie with Leon. He wanted to do the movie with Leon playing one of the co-leads, but not Van Damme. He said, Van Damme, this guy's no actor. This guy's never going to make it as a movie star. I want to do this movie with you guys, but I want to do it with Leon and Michael Dudikoff, who we call the movie star. Like, Van Damme is Poison. Michael Dudikoff is a movie star. So, so that was another fly in the ointment. He didn't even want to. That's when he told me, right to my face. Bloodsport's a terrible movie. We're going to release it straight to VHS, and I'm not doing any more movies with this Van Damme guy, even though I have a 3-picture deal with him. That was one of the reasons that Leon wanted to do the movie with Van Damme, because Van Damme had a 3-picture deal with Cannon Films with Menachem. So he figured, well, this is kind of a match made in heaven here. You're already going to be doing another movie with Van Damme, so why not do it with Van Damme and me, and Sheldon can direct it. And and let's get rolling. And Menachem basically said, not making any more Van Damme movies. You guys can make this movie. I'm going to finance the movie, but you got to do it with Michael Dudikoff. All right. So I had to give the bad news to Jean-Claude. He was not happy to hear that. Then I had my meeting with Michael Dudikoff. It actually got to the point of where I had a meeting with Michael Dudikoff. And Michael didn't want to do the movie. He didn't like the script. So part of my discussion with Menachem, I told him, look, Menachem, the new cut of Bloodsport is terrific. This movie's going to make a lot of money for you guys. You should really put it out in theaters. And I told him, which really pissed him off, because he was really high on Missing in Action 3 at the time. I'm pretty sure it was Missing in Action 3. It could have been 2, depending on the year. I said, Menachem, you put Bloodsport in the theater, it's going to make more money than Missing in Action 3. And he just laughed. You're dreaming, my friend, because that was going to be his Rambo. It was, they even changed the title, and that was called Braddock, Missing in Action 3. And we went back and forth about this, and he just wouldn't budge. He said, no, this movie's not going to make it. I'm not releasing this movie in theaters. So eventually what happened was there was a French distributor named Sami Hadida. And Sami had released No Retreat, No Surrender in France. He had the movie for France. It did really well, and people were enthusiastic about Jean-Claude. It was called Karate Tiger at the time. That was the French title for it. And so when Sami heard that Canon had another movie with Jean-Claude Van Damme, Sami said, I want to buy this movie from you guys, and I'm going to put it in theaters. And that made Menachem start thinking, well, maybe I should take a chance with this thing. And Sami actually ended up doing other movies with Jean-Claude later. He was actually a big friend and advocate of Jean-Claude and myself. So now Menachem and Yoram decided, well, let's take a chance with this movie. We won't spend a lot of money. Let's just release it on the West Coast of the United States. So it was basically California, Oregon, and Washington. And let's put it in like 20 theaters. And they had some posters and some billboards made. And I'm going to move to that. So February 1988, they ran newspaper ads. They had some billboards. This is only on the West Coast, though. So here, starts tomorrow. It was like 3 theaters. Meet Van Damme in person. Get a Bloodsport poster. I've got photos of this I'm going to show you in a few minutes. So they had a little premiere for us on Hollywood Boulevard at the Hollywood Pacific Theater. Okay, yeah, here we go. There's the Hollywood Pacific, and you can see Bloodsport up there. It was on this is one of those big theaters that they converted into 3 small theaters, and they were showing Moonstruck and Aloha Summer at the same theater. There you can see the Bloodsport poster. This is the night of the premiere. So let me move to the next one. Here's a display that they put in the lobby. Wouldn't you guys love to have this display right now? How cool would that be?
That would be amazing.
Yeah,
I would
awesome.
definitely have that. Yeah, I would love that more than a child.
So they kind of went all out for it in their own, in their own Canon film sort of a way. These are all the lobby cards. They put together this nice little display. And quite honestly, this must have cost them $100 to put that together. And then they had Jean-Claude there in person, and they had posters, free posters to whoever showed up. to see the very first screening of the movie. And wouldn't you have loved to have been there? You know, he had a pile of posters, and there's a line of people, and a bunch of people showed up. You know,
Yeah, I'm saying, I mean, that's a solid crowd right there. So I mean, I guess, you know, your memories of that evening, that premiere, I mean, people responded right away. Then I take it.
Yeah, we were in the big auditorium there at the Pacific. You know, like I said, they divided it into 3 theaters, but we were in the big auditorium downstairs, and it was packed. People loved. There's Frank Dux and Jean-Claude, so Frank was there. And there's the posters that they put up. This is a poster that was in my old neighborhood, which is not too far from the Cannon Films headquarters. Yeah, here's the billboard that they put up on Wilshire Boulevard. And you can see Jean-Claude, Michelle, and we were jazzed. We went there. I set up the camera, and we took this photo. And I think people were just intrigued. They, just like Mark DiSalle and I, a few years earlier, we just loved the title. Like, that's a cool title, Bloodsport. And then they had this great photo of Jean-Claude delivering a kick to Bolo Yeung, starring world kickboxing champion Jean-Claude Van Damme. Nobody had ever heard of him before, but they kind of made a big deal out of it, which was a good thing. And this is, yeah, here's Jean-Claude and I a few months later in France, because they ended up releasing it all over the world. But the first place was the West Coast of the United States. And here's our little premiere. That was quite a crowd, considering that there was no star in this movie. Just had a cool title, had a cool poster, and it had Forrest Whitaker. That didn't help. Nobody knew who the hell Forrest Whitaker was at the time. And a good-sized crowd showed up. And then,
and how was Jean-Claude back then coming? Because, you know, these years later, meeting Jean-Claude, he's a very personable guy right away.
right.
But, you know, at that time, I can only imagine he was even more energetic. I mean, just thinking more excited.
Even more personable, even more energetic. Hey, you're not going to see him do something like this nowadays, you know, like, and he was mingling with the fans and happy to sign posters. He must have signed over 100 posters that night. So, yeah, he was pretty jazzed. You know, this was pretty much what launched his career.
Yeah.
When did you find out that Frank wasn't exactly what he said?
I'm going to get to that in a few minutes. Okay. I got a slide for that. All right. And like I said, there was no internet back then. There was really no way. We just took the word. We took Frank's word. Jean-Claude was always kind of suspicious, though, because Jean-Claude came from the martial arts world, and people who were martial artists were the ones who were saying, "This sounds like bullshit. How come I've never heard of this?" You know, even though it's a secret contest, I would have heard something about it. Jean-Claude always thought it's probably BS, but what the hell? It's a good idea for a movie, and I'm starring. Yeah. So what the hell? I'm not gonna put it down. Yeah. So anyways, moving along. So the movie ended up doing well on the West Coast. And then Cannon expanded it to the rest of the country. So now it was I forgot how many screens it was on. It was quite a few screens. I remember seeing some featurette on TV, and this had nothing to do with Cannon or the movie. Somebody was following around some of the Lakers, okay, basketball stars, you know, a group of Lakers, and they're hanging out after a game. And there's like 8 of them. I'm like, hey, let's go check out a movie, guys. Hey, what are we going to see? Hey, that sounds good. Bloodsport. Let's go check out Bloodsport. So the title, it resonated with people. People love the title. They love the photo. And the trailer, I thought, was pretty good. They had a pretty good trailer. I'd love to find that trailer's got to be available somewhere, the original Cannon trailer, and I
Yeah,
don't
it's like
know.
I mean, it's got the steel seas, and he's America's secret weapon or something like that.
Yeah,
Plays it
yeah.
up. Yeah. So
So the trailer was cool. I can't remember if they ran any TV ads. I don't think they did, just because Menachem did not have very much faith in the movie. But they had, you know, they had the billboards. Look, a billboard, that ain't cheap, and they had a few of them. I saw them in other parts of LA also, and you know, newspaper ads. Those weren't expensive.
Did his opinion change whenever the movie came out and started to make money? Was he like, you know what, I like this Van Damme guy?
What's that?
Was Menachem's opinion, did it change at all after the movie came out and became a success?
A complete 180.
No.
Complete 180. Jean-Claude and I, actually, before the movie opened, come to think of it, Jean-Claude was offered a role in another low-budget movie. It might have been Black Eagle. And so we go see Menachem, because he had a 3-picture deal with Menachem, and he tells Menachem, hey, look, this guy is offering me a role in this movie, Black Eagle. I'm going to be the villain with Sho Kosugi. The guy's name was Shimon Arama, actually, the producer's name. And, but I've got a 3-picture, I heard all this, actually. I've got a 3-picture deal with you, Menachem. So I don't want to disrespect you. So I'm going to give you a chance to do a movie with me first, or I won't even sign with this guy if you tell me not to. And Menachem didn't believe a word that Jean-Claude was saying. And he said, Jean-Claude, if this Shimon Arama wants to do a movie with you, God bless you. Go, make your movie. So he did. Then after Bloodsport opened, and I remember going back to Jean-Claude's apartment. Hang on a second here. He was living in an apartment on Riverside Drive in North Hollywood. I'd been there a number of times. This is before the movie opened. So the movie opens, and it's doing really good business. And Jean-Claude had a phone with an answering machine. And the answering machine, it was one of those old answering machines, and basically it would flash a light for every message that you missed. Okay, so if you were out and you missed 2 messages, you know, 2 blips, and okay, I got 2 messages on my phone. We come back to his apartment after the movie opened. That light is just blinking, 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 will not stop until it reached. I think it could store 50 messages, and then it would recycle. Completely full. People were calling him from all over the country, all over the world. Like suddenly, boom! Now he's on his way to becoming a movie star. Then Menachem. I was telling the Menachem story. We go back again after the movie has become a success. And now Jean-Claude is just lambasting Menachem, just chewing him out. Menachem saying, okay, Jean-Claude, I'm sorry, I was wrong, but we have a contract. We have a contract, you see? You have to do 2 more movies for me. So they ended up doing Death Warrant and Cyborg afterwards. And that was the end of Jean-Claude's relation with Cannon Films, because afterwards he was moving on to bigger and better. So Cannon ended up opening the movie all over the world. Here's this is an interesting part of the story too. So we go to see Menachem after Bloodsport had become a success. And now we're talking about Jean-Claude's next movie. Okay, so Jean-Claude, we have a contract. We have 2 more movies. So what's the next movie going to be? And we're sitting in his office, and there's a wall of scripts. must have been well over, like 200 scripts. And one catches my eye, and it's the Corsican Brothers. And I say, hey, Menachem, what's the Corsican Brothers? Oh, that's perfect for Van Damme. Cotton, bring me the Corsican Brothers. I take the Corsican Brothers home, I read it, and I realize this is a great idea for Jean-Claude. We actually ended up making a deal with Cannon Films. We were going to do the Corsican Brothers with Jean-Claude playing both brothers. It was going to take place in Corsica and France. We even did a photo shoot. They even did a poster. And one of my big regrets is that I did not make a copy of that poster. It was a cool poster. It was basically, it was like the Chad and Alex character. We had different names for them because it took place in France. So one guy's with the gun, one guy's got fists, and one guy had a shotgun. One guy, the Chad character had a pistol.
Yes, he's more like he's wearing a suit with a handgun. He had he's wearing the suit with the tie, and he had the handgun. Another guy was like the country guy, right?
Right. The other guy's got this like sheepskin vest that he's wearing, and he's got this cool looking shotgun, and he's wearing a beret on his head. You've probably seen those photos before, right? Well, we did all that for Cannon Films. We were gonna make this movie, and I can't remember exactly. In fact, when this photo was taken, we were scouting for the Corsican Brothers. We went to Corsica and went driving around Corsica with Jean-Claude's parents, taking photographs, because we were going to shoot in Corsica and Paris. And then we go to Paris. So I'm in Paris with Jean-Claude. We go to Menachem's apartment in Paris. He had a beautiful apartment there. And we're talking about the Corsican Brothers, and we're excited about the Corsican Brothers. I can't remember exactly what it was that changed Menachem's mind. All I know is suddenly we weren't making the Corsican Brothers, and probably because it was going to be too expensive. Corsica, Paris, all of that. And they decided to go with something more low budget, which was probably Death Warrant. So anyways, I go to see Menachem in his office, and hey, Menachem, what's the story? This is a great idea. The script, I wrote the script's written. We've done some scouting. Why don't you want to make this movie? And he was still hating Jean-Claude. And I'm quoting him. He said, Van Damme can't play one character. How do you expect him to play two? Okay, so anyways, I had some issues with Cannon Films regarding some other projects, and they owed me money. They didn't want to pay me, which was a common tactic of theirs. So I ended up suing them. I've never sued anybody else before or since in the film business. I had to sue them because they owed me money. And once they realized they were going to lose the lawsuit, then their attorney comes to me with an offer. Says, okay, look, if you drop the lawsuit, Menachem will give you the rights to that Corsican Brothers script. They'll give you the script and all the rights. You can take it to wherever you want. It's yours. But you basically we don't have to pay you, and there's no further claims. Okay, no problem, guys. I got the paper, signed the paper. Meanwhile, Jean-Claude is talking to Moshe Diamond about doing a movie for Moshe. They were going to do a movie called Night of the Leopard. And there was I had talked to the writer of that. I was going to do some rewriting on it. But somehow the deal fell through for the script, and now they've got nothing. And Jean-Claude comes to me and says, hey, Night of the Leopard fell through. Moshe still wants to make a movie with me. What's going on with that Corsican Brothers script? Well, guess what? Cannon is signing it over to me in exchange for me dropping the lawsuit. You sure? You sure they're going to do that? You're positive? Yeah, absolutely. I'm getting the paper from them tonight. They're going to sign it. Okay, look, uh, I'm going to set up a meeting with Moshe. If you get that paperwork that says that you own the project, we're going to go see Moshe tonight, and we're going to do this movie with Moshe Diamond. So that's exactly what happened. Jean-Claude and I go over to Moshe's house. His attorney's there. I've got the contract, the paperwork. The ink is barely dry. And I signed the whole thing over to Moshe, and now we're doing the Corsican Brothers for Moshe, except afterwards we ended up changing the title of Double Impact, which is a very cool title. And
so then we go back really quick, because then what happened with Menahem? You had mentioned you were talking to Menahem about the performance of Bloodsport versus the next Missing in Action, and
right,
of course Bloodsport comes out as a big hit.
Oh, he never brought that up. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, we didn't make a bet on it or anything, but he never brought it up, and I didn't want to embarrass him by bringing it up, so we just dropped it. But when you look at the numbers, Bloodsport did make a lot more money than Missing in Action 3. And does anybody talk about Missing in Action 3 anymore? Look,
right.
Maybe you guys, okay, Action Elite, okay, you got your Canon sweatshirt on, but does anybody else talk about Missing in Action 3 in 2020? Do they talk about Bloodsport? Yeah, they do. So now Bloodsport starts opening up all around the world. Menachem sold it to a lot of different companies. And so here it is in France. And I believe it was Canon France that released it there. They had their own distribution arm in France. Although Sami Hadida wanted the movie, but Menachem wanted to release it himself. And they did really, really well with it in France. I think that's even the Canon France logo up there. And then started opening in other countries all around the world. So here's the Thai poster. Pretty cool poster.
Yeah, that's my favorite one, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, love that one. Like the evil Bolo Yeung over here.
Yeah.
And yeah, look, they got a lot of cool images on this one. Kind of tells the whole story. And here's Germany. There's a lobby card from Germany. Then there was an article that came out, actually just before the movie opened. Inside Kung Fu came out with a long article about the movie. The ultimate movie of the ultimate martial arts contest. And so I think that helped us quite a bit worldwide, especially with martial artists. Martial artists started talking about it. They had this cool shot here from the movie, Jean-Claude doing one of his famous kicks. And then after the movie opened, people started sniffing around about Frank Dux, wondering, like, how true is this story? And this guy from the LA Times, I remember he called me on the phone, asked me a few questions, but he really went into detail. And you can see the article's title is Ninja Hero or Master Fake. Others kick holes in fabled past of Woodland Hills martial arts teacher. And this pretty much got the ball rolling with Frank Dux' stories being exposed as being just fabrications, just fantasies of his. Frank Dux came up with all kinds of explanations as to why this guy wrote the story. I've heard him say, the guy was having an affair with my wife. The guy was a competitor of mine. The guy was being paid by my competitors, all kinds of stories. But basically, this is a reporter that just was intrigued. Could this story actually, is there some veracity to this story? Once he started looking into it, he pretty much realized this guy's full of shit. Other people picked up on that also. So then, more of the legacy of Bloodsport here, released on home video for the first time, December 1988. And then here it is a VHS cover. This is for England. And nowadays, this movie is, the violence is so tame, but back then it was like 18 and over. If you're under the age of 18, you couldn't see this movie.
I remember that.
I guess you did have with the neck snap and the leg getting broken and stuff like that. So I can see
Yeah.
that.
Oh, yeah. Different time, yeah.
And here's, let's see, I think
What
it's
an odd cover that it's Van Damme's face and his body, but it's just like not the same photo.
I think you're right. I think you're right. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I think they. Okay, now here's the German Blu-ray. Oh, so this is here's the DVD. So then we made eventually we made a transition to DVD, then Blu-ray. So the popularity increased, like you guys said. Neither one of you saw it in the theater for the first time, right?
No.
Right.
VHS, and then DVD, and then Blu-ray, and then TV. And this movie, the popularity of this movie just has not diminished. Here's a fan-made poster. Okay, it just had so many fans all over the world. People started making their own posters for the movie because they loved it so much. Here's another fan. This is a really cool fan-made.
That's a great one.
Yeah, it's a cool one.
This is probably nicer than any of the genuine theatrical posters, actually. Now, yeah, here's a fan and an enamel pin, which I have here someplace. Then these were completely unauthorized. These were action figures. I think they were actually G.I. Joe action figures that they dressed up in some other clothing.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, I recognize some of them.
Yeah, and Frank Dux has been grousing about this for years. The fact that people are coming up with this merchandise, and he's not getting a penny from it. Sorry about that, but these are totally unauthorized. I don't know if this is authorized or not. Here's a rash guard shirt.
I want it though.
Huh?
I want it.
It's pretty cool, isn't it?
Yeah, it's awesome.
I'm sure if you look it up on the internet, you could find this.
Oh, yeah.
Basically, I saw it advertised. You could actually order it. Then there were sequels. Bloodsport 2, 3, and 4. Jean-Claude didn't want to do the sequels. Actually, the rights were bought by Alan Merez, a different producer. And Jean-Claude didn't want to do them. And Frank Dux actually ended up suing these guys and not getting anything. He sues people all the time and loses. But so they got Daniel Bernhardt, who did 3 sequels.
And then Perfect Target with you a little later, right?
Perfect Target with me. And he's a good friend with David Leitch and Chad Stahelski.
Yeah.
In fact, he brought them over to my house one time. This is before any John Wick, anything like that. They were just a couple of stunt guys. And I remember them coming here. And one of them goes in the bathroom and comes out and tells the other guy, hey, guys, come here. Look at this. I have a Bloodsport poster in the bathroom. And they were all basically standing there staring at it like, wow, a Bloodsport poster. So this was just an iconic film for these guys. And I've heard that they want to make David Leitch and Chad Stahelski want to do their own sequel or a reboot, actually, of Bloodsport. And they also want to do Enter the Dragon. So who knows?
That's brave. I don't know who they would cast in Bloodsport now. I don't know if there's any sort of up and coming martial arts stars. Maybe just have to be an unknown or something.
I would think. But those guys are they're pretty adept at doing these kinds of movies. So who knows? Maybe they'll get Keanu Reeves to play. I doubt if they make a Bloodsport sequel. And there has been talk. Ed Pressman was going to be involved with one. They even had a director. They were doing pre-production, but the character is never going to be called Frank Dux again, because Frank Dux wants a bunch of money, and he still tells people that the story is true, that he really did this, and it has to be accurate. It has to be accurate to his real story, but this time he wants to tell the real story, not the story that was told in Bloodsport. There's a lot of the details are wrong, so he tells this to people, and they say, you know what? we're not going to have a character named Frank Dukes in the movie at all. Like they had a different name here in the Bloodsport sequels. Frank was pissed. He sued. He lost.
Again.
And also a testament to Van Damme's popularity. I mean, you got 3 sequels without him for Bloodsport, and you had at least 2, I think, maybe 4 sequels for Kickboxer. You had a Time Cop. I mean, he's got to have a record for the most sequels that he's not in.
Yeah. He's not in. Yeah, we've had people talk to us about. Oh, wait, I'm going to move on to the. And here's the imitators of clones. Okay, so then there was Blood Fist, Blood Fight, Blood Match. Basically, everybody was
sport blood.
was trying to jump on the bandwagon here.
Yeah.
And these are the ones with Don the Dragon Wilson. Interesting side story. Roger Corman produced these Blood Fist movies, and they actually issued a challenge to Van Damme. They wanted to set up a fight between Van Damme and Don Wilson, and they're going to pay Jean-Claude like $100,000. Like at this point, he didn't need $100,000, but anyways, he didn't want to.
I do remember reading that in Black Belt magazine, and just being very, it's like trying to get publicity and stuff. And like my comment earlier is that hey, Don Wilson can be the greatest martial artist in the world, but it still didn't translate on film the way it did with Van Damme. I mean, it's just what it was.
Right, yeah. And look, I don't know that much about real martial arts myself. I mean, I know more than the average layman, but even so, real martial artists that I've met have said Don Wilson could just wipe the floor with Jean-Claude. I don't know about that. I've seen Jean-Claude spar with world champions. He's no pussy. Okay, you wouldn't want to piss Jean-Claude off.
No.
And you don't want to. You don't want to knock a chip off his shoulder, okay? So I don't know how Don Wilson would have done against Jean-Claude. I've met Don a number of times. We'd even talked about doing a movie together. Just looking at him physically, I wouldn't think that he'd stand a chance against Van Damme, but maybe he's got all these special techniques.
He is fast, yeah.
He's fast, but Jean-Claude's got some real power. He's really, he really is. And I think if he landed one kick or one punch on Don Wilson, that might be the end of it. I could be wrong, but that's just the way it seems to me. Let me see what I got next here. Oh, okay. So now, here's the 30th anniversary. I did a Q&A. And I've done a bunch of Q&As for this movie.
Yeah, we've got to do, so many in LA and around town in Austin, New York, and everything. And you
I did a few with you, come to think of it. Yeah. So people still want to see this movie. And it happens to be one of Donald Trump's favorite movies. This is from an article about the fact that Donald Trump loves this movie. And apparently he doesn't like the talk scenes. He just likes the fight scenes. In enough times, he just fast forwards, from fight to fight to fight. But that's kind of cool that the president of the United States has this on his top 10.
That's pretty awesome.
I remember when we had one of the double back screenings, you have that comment about Donald Trump, and we all started laughing about that.
Oh, right.
It was just such a coincidence. So.
Right. Because there's a Donald Trump reference in Double Impact that I totally forgot about. And then we were watching the screening, and I realized, oh shit, I mentioned Donald Trump, and everybody in the theater cracked up. So, anyways, it's right up there. Where he's got a list of, it's up there with The Godfather and Gone with the Wind and all these movies. So, I guess I should be proud of that. And here on dozens of best martial arts movie and best action movie lists. Every time there's a list of best action, best martial arts, Bloodsport's always there someplace.
Rightly
so.
So.
We were talking about just, between Bloodsport and Van Damme's popularity in martial arts, Seagal to a certain extent too. I mean, you had that whole era of just the Street Fighter video games and the martial arts and all the kind of guys, what you were saying, the imitators who came after the video market. I mean, it was a whole enterprise, and Van Damme really helped kick that off. So.
Absolutely.
And yourself, of course, with some seminal films. So.
I was telling Mark DiSalle before the movie opened, because there were video games. They weren't as sophisticated as they are nowadays, but there were these simple video games like the one that they show in the movie. You know, there's that martial arts video game.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, you should do a Bloodsport arcade game. And he was, nah, forget about it. To the movie. But that would have been a good thing to do back then.
You can even do it now with like the modern effects. I mean, I was actually thinking of doing an article on the site of what if you had like the ultimate martial arts video game where you had characters like all characters from Bloodsport and then Boyka from Undisputed and all these characters all together all to fight out. And I thought I'd play that.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Apparently, in Mortal Kombat, the character Johnny Cage was based on Jean-Claude. That's why
right.
he has the same initials, JC.
Yeah.
And I
I
think they wanted him to be.
I believe they went to him first to try to do some kind of video game based on him, and he just wasn't. For whatever reason, he just wasn't into it. And then you got Mortal Kombat, and then so it's kind of funny that he ended up being in a Street Fighter movie, and you have his reference in Mortal Kombat too.
They weren't offering him enough money for the Mortal Kombat movie. I do believe they came to him. You guys would know more about this than me, but I think they came to him for that, and he turned it down. With Street Fighter, though, they paid him a huge amount of money. They paid him like $7 million.
Yeah,
so,
I think it was double his rate he got for Time Cop, so he did well.
Money talks.
Yeah.
Our main character was gonna be walking down an alley somewhere in Thailand. A bunch of guys come up to him. They want to fight him. He ends up having a fight. And what he doesn't realize is that there's cameras that have been placed strategically all around to record the fight, and that people in remote locations are betting on these fights. So it's like, I guess a little bit like Lionheart in some ways. But basically it was about, like remote fights. And then whoever was the ultimate champions of some of these street fights all around the world were going to be brought together for this like Kumite competition. As I recall, it was something like that.
Oh, okay. And Peter Kane, I actually wanted to know, do you have a favorite scene from Bloodsport which you particularly just really stands out to you?
Wow, a favorite scene from Bloodsport. I think maybe the final fight. The final fight, Van Damme versus Bolo Yeung is pretty cool.
Yeah. And Oris Sopiak asks, can you tell us anything about the inspiration for the Shidoshi/Dux training scenes?
For which scene?
The training scenes with Shidoshi and Dux where he's being trained. Was there a particular inspiration behind that?
I think that was pretty much worked out between the director, Frank Dux, and Jean-Claude. I think that was one that where Frank really had a hand in those training scenes. Like I know he talked about catching the fish. Remember, there's a little part of that where I guess he's blindfolded and catching fish. I know Frank came up with that. Frank came up with a lot of the blindfold stuff. See, I wasn't actually there, so I couldn't tell you with any authority. But my feeling is that it was pretty much a collaboration between the three of them.
Okay. And Michael Gardner was wondering if you have any future plans to work with Van Damme again.
Oh, we have talked about the projects. We've talked about Double Impact sequels. We've talked about Lionheart sequels. There's a number of projects that I've written specifically with him in mind that he was involved with. But so far, none of them have panned out. Not in the last few years, anyway.
Okay. And actually, this is going to be the final question. Do you know how the various fighters were chosen or cast for Bloodsport, all the different fighting styles? How did they go about that? Were you aware of that?
No, I wasn't there. That was all done in Hong Kong. According to Frank Dux, most of these guys were not fighters. He said a few of them were ballet dancers. I think most of the Asian guys that end up fighting, they were I think they were fighters, but like the big sumo guy, I don't think he was a fighter at all. In fact, we ended up using him in Double Impact. We used a few of these people in Double Impact when I went back there a few years later. Yeah, the big sumo guy, he was no fighter. He was just picked because he was big. He didn't even look like a sumo. He was large, but a sumo would have been twice the size of that guy. Yeah, I was not there. I was not involved with most of that stuff.
Oh, okay. Well, that's pretty much all the fan questions, because you weren't there. One of the fans had asked, how would you describe Newt Arnold's directing style? But if you weren't there, then you won't know.
Oh, Newt Arnold's, yeah,
so who knows? I'm
really
sure it was very good.
Yeah, he basically just got the story in the can. There was nothing unique or fancy about the way that the movie's directed. He knew how to do this. He'd been an assistant director for decades, I believe. And it's just very basic, you know, wide shot, medium close up, over the shoulder, you know, just stuff like that. There's nothing particularly special about the directing in Bloodsport, but it all works. It all comes together. The story works. Van Damme, I think, really carries that movie. Quite a bit of it rests on Van Damme's shoulders. Without him in that movie, I don't know if it would have been nearly as good. So he brought a lot to the table.
Yeah, I mean, that movie really was his calling card, right? I mean, look at that movie, just, you know, I mean, the amount of times he does the splits and just like the sense of humor in it, and the fighting, and, you know, and like I said, the soundtrack is great and keeps the pace going. It really is just it's a great showcase for him.
And there's some really good acting in it too. Like the moment where he says, Shidoshi is not sure if he should put him into this Kumite, and he's saying something like, I can do it, Shidoshi. And he, you know, he's very earnest and enthusiastic, and I thought the acting was quite good in that scene.
Yeah, that's what I always appreciate about Van Damme. He's really putting the effort in. You know, I mean, he was a very green performer, but he's always trying. So.
Oh yeah, he was always putting in 110% on that movie.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah,
right,
I wish I could say more about the production, but I wasn't there.
You weren't there, yeah.
When we talk about Lionheart and Double Impact, I'll have a lot more on-set anecdotes to tell you guys.
Perfect, and they're coming soon. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in, and thank you, Sheldon and Duvien, for taking time to chat tonight, and really much appreciate it, and look forward to seeing you soon for our next show.
And I'm glad you're all still loving the movie 35 years later.
Yeah.
Make sure to show it to your kids, and let's keep the legacy going, okay?
Absolutely.